There we go. I got it.
All right. These are going to be ACSI schools. About what percentage do you anticipate will have had the ACSI board training?
Wow, that's a good question. Have had the ACSI board training. That would be something that I probably would need to do a little research on who has done the ACSI training. I know from my own personal experience with the two Christian schools I've been part of, we've always afforded ourselves the opportunity to have the training through ACSI. But I know a lot of member schools do not always take advantage of everything that's given to them. Mm-hmm. So I think that's an excellent question for me to see if someone has actually a stat on what typically is done.
Okay, I'm trying to remember on the demographics, is there a spot on there that asks them if they've been ACSI board trained?
No, there isn't, and I think that that's actually a wonderful question.
Yeah.
The reason why I was bringing that up, because if we're looking at perceptions between the board and the head of school, if there has been training, both if they've gone through board training, there might be a synergy, to use a term used, between that perception based upon that training. But that's not a problem in the study because, like you said, they don't always take advantage of that. Yeah. And then in your data set, that will show a division most likely between those perceptions based upon the training and not, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Dr. McCann?
Yes.
Hubert Hartzler, if I could just interject one little thing that goes along with that. If it's possible to collect that piece of information when they do the survey, they've had board training the last 5 years or they haven't, then you could compare the schools that have had it with the schools that haven't had it in terms of your data. I think that would be amazing. I'd love that. But
I think that's a great addition to your demographics.
Yeah,
it's a simple question that you could ask. Yeah.
Here's a second question, and please forgive me for not remembering this. On your demographics.
Let me move back just a second. And I think the way you could ask that is, have you participated in the ACSI board training opportunity? Because there may be people that are on boards a long time and they've had it, but new people haven't had it. And again, as Hubert and Mark are pointing out, that makes a great division, because then you can put in those that have not had it personally and those that have had it, and see if there's a difference in even their perceptions of effectiveness. Yeah.
And the value to ACSI is almost.
Exactly. That would be a value to give back to them.
Now, in your opinion, because I know with ACSI board training, they offer it in many different ways. Many times, a regional director will come out to a school, as they did at both Timothy's I've been part of. But there's also the board training that they do on different sites. Do you think it matters to delineate between that, or should
I? I think that's getting too fine.
Okay.
I agree.
The other thing, Don, is some people do it that I don't know if they're still associated with that being an ACSI event, like Dr. John Schimmer. I don't know if he did one here a year and a half ago. That might be the last one he's done. He's getting a little older. But he's done a ton of that over the years. Is that associated with an ACSI board training? He was the regional director of ACSI for years. But
yeah, I think that's under the auspices of ACSI.
Yeah, I don't think, Dr. Hartzler, I know you had invited me to be part of that one when they met in the middle school building, if you recall. I know that he did not come under the direction of ACSI. So I just don't know, although I know he does things for ACSI left and right, as you said, Dr. Hartzler. So I don't know if there needs to be is it important to have that specificity of ACSI board training? Or should I ask this?
That's what I'm thinking, because they may be confused. And I would just say, have you undergone a board training?
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, and don't put ACSI with it.
Okay. Now, can I be devil's advocate for a moment, if you don't mind? I know that when I went through accreditation with my former school, I'm being so general, although Dr. Hartzler knows this.
We all know what school you're talking about.
If you were to ask the then board president, because I did, if you were to then ask the then board president, have you done training? He looked at me with all seriousness and said, oh, yes, we did, because he thought by having a board policy book and that they sit down and they hand it to the board, the new board people, they consider that training.
Okay, and you might want to say, have you had I'll tell you what, this is something you and I will work on getting the wording.
Yeah.
Because what we may have is we'll work on the first question and then have skip logic. And if they had it, then we'll go say, was it ACSI? Was it by a consultant? Was it other?
Yeah, I think that would be wise because especially obviously if there's a correlation between or if there is a difference between how both types view the board governance, you don't want to skew it by having those that see themselves as very well trained through whatever means that are Mickey Mouse to them.
But so, you and I we'll work out on that wording.
Okay. No, that's
all right. Let me go on to the next question, which was alluded to a little bit ago. And I can't, forgive me if I'm not remembering this, but in the demographics, does it actually have the person responding say whether they are a brand new board member or an experienced board member?
I am going to double check because I think I asked them if they're a board president or a board member, and I asked them how many years they've been on.
That's key. The how many years is what I wanted to know. I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
Because that will have an impact on perceptions based upon how long they've been on a board.
I did it under 4 years, 4 to 7, 8 to 11, over 12.
Right.
Okay. All right. This is a representative question. In terms of a representative sample of board members from a given school, how will you know if the response rate from a given school, you only got one board member, you got 5 board members responding? How is that being accounted for?
I wasn't sure if that was necessary for what I am seeking to do, like if it was needed to know if they were all coming from the same school or not.
Yeah, and because she's just doing school boards and school heads in a general sense,
okay,
she's not going to be giving individual feedback and comparing. She's just lumping all heads into group and all school boards into group to see what the general consensus is.
All right. The reason why I'm asking that is if, let's say, your response data set comes back and school A has 5 board members and all 5 give their perceptions, which is going to give you some data. But school B has 5 board members, but only 1 board member responds. Does that have anything to do with how the data is going to be translated or what you'll see in the data?
But all of their perceptions will be different.
Yeah.
I'm just asking. I mean, my point was that
because of the number that she expects to get out of the 3,000 schools, and since she's looking at school boards in general and heads in general, that will just go into the population or into the sample of school boards and not it's school board members not from a particular school. So I know what you're asking, but that's not the level at which she's doing her research at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a little silly question. Would you call this qualitative or quantitative research?
Oh, it's quantitative.
All right. Explain a little bit more about why you say that.
It's quantitative because you're testing me on statistics.
No, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Yes, it is quantitative because I'm not doing a survey where I'm doing surveys that are based upon like a Likert scale, and everything is given a number, and it's done totally statistically, as opposed to being face-to-face and doing a case study where I'm meeting with 5,000 people and talking to their boards.
Your data are numbers and they are not words.
There you go. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Can I tell you, I'm a math teacher, and I have felt like the dumbest math teacher going through statistics, just so you know that.
Hey, listen, you're in the club. You're in the club. I love statistics, but I struggle with statistics.
Yeah.
I love certain aspects of statistics, quite frankly. Quantitative is a much cleaner way to go. Let's see. I had some minor questions that were within the body of the work on my notes back, but there's nothing really that has a serious question in my mind.
And she's seen those, right?
Yeah, and Dr. McCann, I did want to thank you profusely for that. You had referenced that one study by the Educational Statistics Center. That was phenomenal. That actually kind of confirmed because the studies I had found were so like little microcosms of in Washington and you know, Texas, and this was more widespread, and it kind of confirmed the percentage of. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. I don't have any other questions at the moment. You know, I'm looking forward to seeing how this all goes forward. I really do think this is going to be a valuable study.
Yeah.
But anyway, those my questions. If I have anything else that pops up, I'll bring it up, or I'll make note of it while we're still going on in the conversation.
Okay. Dr. Hartzler, questions or insights that you have?
Yeah, just a couple. I really commend you on the study. I think it's a very needful study for Christian schools. So I kind of come along with Dr. McCann in terms of I wish we could identify, I understand probably the limitations, that's why you can't, but individual school boards and what's coming from them, in that some schools are new with only been in existence a few years. Some have been there, like Timothy, since 1949, and there's some ingrown board members along the way. So I think there's a wide range or variety of school boards and schools. So, you know, you can't accomplish everything in one study. I understand that, and I'm okay with that. I think you're going to get a lot of beneficial information the way you're doing it. If it was possible to identify different words and so forth, that would even be more interesting to me. But that said, do you have, and by the way, for some reason I got kicked off for about 3 or 4 minutes there, and I had to dial the number and get back on. So I lost a little bit in there, but I'm back live now. So is there any way to know how long the head of school has been there? Because he's going to fill out a questionnaire. The board's he's going to get the board to do it. If it's his first year, I would think that might be a little different perception from him than somebody's been there for 10 years or a longer period of time. And maybe that's not a big deal, but I just wondered if you are going to identify how long the head of school's been there.
Yes, that's actually also put in here. How long have you served in your current role at the school?
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could have read that and I would have known that, right? But I did read it once, but I didn't remember. So.
I actually well, you know what I do is I incorporate the question all in one. So it's the question is, how long have you served in your current role at the school? So they already identified who they are 2 questions above, and then
right. So you're going to have that. That's good.
Yeah. So I'll be able to separate. It's the same question for a head of school as it is for a board member.
And she
very good.
She also asked how long the school's been in existence, and so she'll be able to do some manipulations in that to see if there's difference, because I understand, having served at Wheaton Academy, which started in 1853, the idea of ingrown board members is very understandable.
Right. No, it's yeah, it's just a whole different world there, but in terms of the comparison of the different kinds of schools and how long they've been in existence. But I do think your study is extremely important. I think and you know, years ago we probably all heard Roy Lowry say the most important relationship in the school, or the key relationship in the school, is the head of school and the board. And I remember hearing that in 72 or 3 at Winona Lake, and it's true. So I do think it's an extremely important topic. I'm thrilled that you're doing it. Let's see, I had another question here. You were concise and clear in your summary, as well as in the research question there. Is there a significant difference? You know, in the means involved. I thought you did that very concisely, and it was drawn from the literature in the sense that the literature it backed it up as to why there might be a reason to do this study. The different studies that talk about the 6 actions of effective boards, 6 dimensions of effective boards, those kinds of things. I enjoy reading those. I think it's pertinent in your study. You're not really going to be able to associate practices of the boards you're surveying, though. You're just going to compare what you're comparing with the head of school and the board. it would be interesting to have them. Well, let me ask this. Does your questionnaire discern any of those practices of effectiveness in terms of the questions you ask?
Yes, actually, I finally turned to the page. It goes to 6 stories that Smoley pulled from the Chait literature and the Chait study. So it's making decisions, functioning as a group. I am so sorry. He's 180 pounds and he has a big mouth. I am so sorry. That's my dog. He'll stop in 1 second.
He wants to participate in this.
Yeah, and I'm trying to ignore him, and I will throw my shoe at him in 1 second if he doesn't stop.
He's letting us know we better treat you nicely, or he'll take care of it.
I live in a 2-family house, and my mother is downstairs with a walker, and I think he hears the walker going across the floor. So, yeah, I'm going to throw a toy at him. Give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. And now the other ones are going to bark. But yes, there's categories of making decisions, functioning as a group, exercising authority, connecting with community, working towards board improvement, and acting strategically. Those are the 6 categories.
I thought those were built in, but I didn't take them in just now. Look, and so really you're going to compare the perception of the school as to how they do with that and how the boards say they do with it. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, good.
And so that'll be another. And what the questions you're asking, Dr. Hartzler, are the questions that lead to further research.
Yes,
because
they do.
I think she's going to uncover some things that are going to say, okay, here's what we need to look at. Here's some things somebody else needs to look at. And you're already seeing the robustness of this question.
Right. No, I agree. I think that's the main questions that I had. I'm high on your study in the sense that I think you've done a good job with the literature review and with the summary and pulling it out and focusing the question, and it certainly needs to be done. So the other point I would ask is some schools, even at ACSI, are sponsored by a church. Some are sponsored by just a board. Some sponsored by an association that elects the board. Do you collect that information in your survey?
Okay, I'm going to ask you to hold for 1 moment. I'm going into my daughter's bedroom because my daughter just got home. Okay, so that is my 22-year-old daughter's fault. I apologize.
And she take care of the dogs.
Yes, that's exactly what she's doing right now. And so I'm in her room.
I'll answer that question. Yes, she does ask that, Hubert.
Okay, good.
Sponsored by a particular church, but operates with separate school board. Yeah. And my school is independent. So she,
okay, good.
Even that's going to be some data she can manipulate.
That's right. You might be able to manipulate that and determine if there's basic differences in terms of the different kinds of sponsorship of the school, because that does affect governance directly. I mean,
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
All right. Here's my big question. What is the difference? How do you make the case that using Smoley's instrument that measures competencies is measuring effectiveness?
How do I make the case that Smoley's instrument, which measures competency, measures effectiveness?
Yeah.
I think I made the case when I unpackaged how he came up with those competencies. Those competencies are birthed out of the effective practices. That's one of the main reasons why I chose to use that instrument and not try to derive my own, because once I saw that Smoley used that from Chait's research, Chait developed that survey based upon all of the evidence of effective governance or effective practices. As I did the lit review into the beginning portion of chapter 3, that's why I took the time to unpackage that piece, was to show the validity of that particular instrument in showing that.
Okay, and that's, I'm going to read back through it because even I just looked at it now. as we talk about Smoley's instrument,
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that we're saying measures of effective competencies.
Okay.
Because, it's just questions I've heard us talking that I hadn't thought about.
Okay.
I'll reread it and make sure. But that would be the one caution, that as we talk about what we're measuring, that we always speak of it in terms of effectiveness.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's valid.
Because if I'm just measuring competencies, I'm not sure that I understand how I'm measuring effectiveness. But I think you make the case that you are measuring effectiveness based on the construct that Chait et al. Put together about what effectiveness is as related to these competencies.
Yeah, and it took me a while to uncover that, because it was only in this picking up of the data that I finally found that connection, because I could not find the connection between Smoley and Chait at first.
Right.
And once I found that that study that came in between, it was the bridge that they both pulled from, and it made better sense.
Right. And I think you've done that, but just as in our talking about it, we want to make sure that we keep the fact that we're measuring effectiveness, not competencies.
So the language has to be consistent.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I would agree with keeping the language of effectiveness. I do think that the two are plowing the same ground to some degree.
Yes, and I just glanced open to the name of on page 851, board self-assessment questionnaires, grouping the questions by the 6 elements of school board effectiveness. And so, I mean, in her discussion, she keeps that focused on that. It's just, when she was talking about it, she talked about competencies without talking about competencies that reflect effectiveness.
Yeah, just being consistent.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to bow out.
Sure.
Okay.
Dr. Watson, I'll get with you a little bit later on.
That'll be fine.
All right. And forgive me, guys, for having to bow out, but my guys are about to come into the classroom. So.
Okay. Thank you.
And we knew this would happen, but we wanted to make this was the best time for us to get most of this done.
All right. I'll catch up with you all later.
All right. Now,
Thank you, Dr. McCann.
the other question that I have is, you stated that if they didn't have a head and they didn't have a school board, they wouldn't participate. But your questionnaire, as it's printed, doesn't have that as beginning questions, which you would skip logic them to the end. And that will be something we'll need to work on in setting up your, there are a couple places that I want to discuss with you. Have we put skip logic to move them ahead so that they're answering the right questions?
Correct.
But
Correct.
if it's, they have to be ahead, they have to have a head of school, and they have to have a board, those will be your first 2 questions. And because you're very good, you put all your demographics at the end like you're supposed to. But those are your qualifying questions that we'll put at the beginning. And if we say, does your school have a head of school? And if they say yes, then they'll go to question 2. If they say no, they'll go to the end of the survey and say, thank you for your participation. In question 2, does your school have a governing board? And if they say yes, then they'll go into the main part of the questionnaire. If they say no, we'll skip logic them to the end and say, thank you for your participation. Because you don't want them to go all the way through, and there was really not a question that ever asked, does your school have a head, does your school have a board? But you said
I do not ask does your school have a governing board, but I do ask, in your role, do you directly have interaction with the school board? I ask that because depending upon who's getting the emails, like for instance at Dr. Hartzer's school, the principals have no contact at all with the board. It's only the head of school.
Right.
So, and also, one question I came upon when I was looking back through it too was where it's, I ask if they're a head of school or if they're a school board member or a school board president. Does it matter that role if they're president, or should I just keep it general as just, are you a school board member? Are you a head of school, chief of school administrator, blah, 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 or none of the above?
because your question deals with school board members, that's what I would keep it.
Keep it with president or without president?
Without president.
Okay. Okay.
I have one more concern that goes along with that. We have a great illustration of what I'm about to say right here in the area. Some schools that are sponsored by a church have a governing school board, and that school board sets policy. They actually go through the interview process to hire a superintendent or head of school. That might be approved by the senior pastor or the church board as well, but they really do function as a governing board. There are other churches that sponsor schools where they have what they call a school board, but it's really like a committee, and they really don't govern at all. In one case locally here, the chief financial officer of the church really is the superintendent, and the principals report to him. They used to have a separate administrator with a school board that it was really a committee they called a board. Now they don't have a superintendent anymore. The day-to-day secondary principal, elementary principal report to the CFO of the church school. And so there are going to be a variety of different situations that are members. They're members of ACSI, by the way. I don't think they're accredited with ACSI. I can't remember that, but I'm not sure this is significant to talk about, except that, in terms of you changing your study in any way, I just mean that you will be getting responses from people who call themselves school board members who really aren't governance policy setting school board members, because that's all run by the church and the church CEO and the senior pastor.
I do ask a question. I don't know if it would help it, because there's two questions. I say, in your role, do you have regular interaction with the school board, participating in all or part of the school board meetings? And then the other question is, my school is sponsored by a church and operates within the church governance structure. The school does not have a school board. It is governed by the entity or entities within the sponsoring church. That's an eliminating question. In essence, you're describing that. So if they say that, that would be...
You're addressing that there.
Yeah, and then the second one is it's like the school I'm at, Dr. Hartzler. My school is sponsored by a particular church, but operates with a separate school board, which may or may not include a number of members of the church. That's my board. And your board is the last one. The school's independent and an individual, not separate of any sort of church sponsorship.
Yeah.
So I think that's an eliminating question. If they answer that truthfully, someone who knows that they're really connected with the church, and the pastor's the head of school, and I get it, because those people can't answer this intelligently.
Right.
Yeah. I just was been in contact with a guy in consulting, and actually flew him in for an interview. I'd love to hire him, but I'm not sure he can come this way. But he was at a large school, 1,800 students in Florida, sponsored by a large church. In fact, the 8th largest church in the country for a while. And then when the pastor committed adultery and they removed him, the giving went down the church 30% over a 2.5 or so year period. And so a CFO and a couple people, 2 or 3 people in the church, made the decision to let go the entire advancement and business office staff of the school. He was the CFO of the school, without consulting him or the CFO of the church. And they said, we'll just put, to save money, because we want to save as many pastors in the church, we'll put the school business office under the church business office. They can do both. It's one ministry. It's one 501c. And boy, it's caused a ton of issues.
Oh,
so you know for sure they do not have, 11 people go in the church school business office. And by the way, during this time when the church is going down, the school's growing. They grew 100 students. So, and it was very healthy with a balanced budget. So I'm just simply saying to you, if they're ACSI members, if they fill this thing out, they have what they formed as a school board, but they don't have any authority. They were informed that these people were all let go by the CFO of the church. So I'm just pointing that out. I don't need you don't have to do anything about it necessarily, but
And Dr. Harter, when I wrote that one question, honestly, I was thinking of Calvary Christian in Old Bridge, because they're run in a kind
Same
of an
thing
odd,
there. Yeah,
they're run in an odd way. Like, you know, if you
they
ask
are.
them who, I don't know who answers to the board. I don't think anyone who is of a head of school capacity answers to the board. So I wanted to
Well,
be able to construct the question.
they've actually done away with the head of school. So if they answer it correctly, they won't be able to do your survey, because they have two
Correct.
principals that report to the CFO of the church school, and he reports to the pastor, and there is no board. I mean,
And-
it's nuts. But
And that's why I'm very clear of head of school and how much interaction the head of school. If the head of school does not have interaction regularly with the board, or whatever they call their head of school, if, you know, like at Calvary, it used to be the financial person who was the one who was the conduit, you know. So yeah, I agree, because that I struggled with those questions very much because of wonderful New Jersey and the awesome way that we put Christian schools.
When I was at Worthington Christian, the superintendent of Worthington Christian Schools was the chief financial officer of the church. They had a school board, but it was primarily a committee, and it was the senior pastor that made the final decisions. So I call them Baptist popes. But when the school board had set a 5-year plan, and it didn't include girls soccer the next year in high school, guess who was let go? Because somebody had a daughter that was going to be a freshman and wanted to play soccer.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it might be worthy to put a question or to embellish the question, one of the questions a bit. Is it worth it to say you're separately incorporated, you are you have a set of governing bylaws? As long as the survey is right now, I think the 3 questions that you have are sufficient, and it'll be interesting to, I think the main thing is to have those, if you put those 2 qualifying questions as the very first, are you the head of school that interacts directly with the school board? Whatever you defining head, that should be your first question. Yeah. And if they say no, you skip logic them to say thank you for your time. And then the second question is, does your school have a policy-making board that you relate to? And if they say
what you want to know is, does the board set policy or does somebody else?
Could that be question 79? 79, just add the word policy making in there. Make that the second logic skip.
Read it to us.
That's the choose the statement that closely describes the type of school you serve in. A, my school is sponsored by a church and operates within the school governance structure. The school does not have a school board and is governed by the entity or entities within the sponsoring church. Or that would skip logic it out. They'd be gone.
Exactly. And you put that as your second question in the survey.
And then
I agree.
Then my school is sponsored by a particular church but operates with a separate school, I could say governing school board. Add the word governing. Yes. Governing school board, which may or may not include any members of church members. You know, like my school has church members and non. And that would keep them in. And then the other one is my school is independent of any individual church sponsorship. It may have a founding or association group or individual, which would be like Timothy. Right. And your first question would be question 74. Yes, which is, and take out school board president. We just want to know that they're either a member of the board, that they're head of school. And maybe the second question, in your role, do you directly have interaction with the school board? I think that has to be in the beginning too, because if they don't have interaction with the school board, that eliminates like a Calvary where you have a CFO who's considered the head of school, but really they just talk to somebody and, you know. So you're going to have 3 questions then that would be your skip. 74, and if they check none of the above, they skip out. And then if they check head of school or school board member in your role, you may have the head of school skip logic to 75. Yes. Because you don't want the school board member going to that one. Well, actually, would it hurt for a school board member in your role? Let's say someone says, I'm a school board member. Maybe the head of school sent it to, you know, someone who, like they have the committees. Sometimes you have tons of committees. Well, do
Right.
you regularly have interaction with the school board, participating in all or part of the school board meetings? Well, no, I don't. I'm just on a committee that I'm on a finance committee. I don't interact with them. They're not like Timothy has a finance committee. They don't. I'm assuming.
Okay. The way I would word that then is, in your role, do you have regular interaction with the school board by participating in all or part of school board meetings?
By participating. Okay.
Yeah. And that could
And what I would,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dr. Hartzler.
What I would suggest for number 79 is the middle box. My school is sponsored by a particular church and operates with a separate school board, which sets policy for the school. Because I'm telling you, there's churches with school boards, but they don't set policy for the school.
Right, and they might miss, and that's a little bit more straight spoken because they may not understand the word governing.
True.
That's the point. They will not understand the word governance. They think, well, yeah, I guess we govern because we're the school board.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my school is sponsored by a particular church and operates with a separate school board who sets policy for the school, okay, yeah. I'll put that at the very end.
Yeah, very good.
Yep, no, I think that's good.
But
And
I
that
think
would be,
now, yeah,
and that would be question number 3 then.
that
And
would
then
be
by
question.
then it's filtered everybody out.
Exactly,
And then you can start the survey.
exactly.
Now, do you believe that the other questions that I have, like we said, how long have you served on your board? That's obviously valid.
I thought the rest of them looked fine.
Even the number
I
of
did
board
too.
members, is there significance to the number of board members?
Oh, I didn't see that one.
That's number 77. And how often do they meet? Like those, am I asking too many specific questions?
Yeah, you don't need to ask those 2 questions.
Okay. Because it would be interesting to see, but I don't know how much of a comparative thing that would really show the type
The
of
only
school
thing it would do is satisfy you and my curiosity in terms of,
Yes.
of your participants. Half of them came from schools that had 5 to 8 school board members, and half came from, you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
have a little bit of a glimpse or insight into the kinds of people that actually filled out the questionnaire for you. But
And I
Yeah.
think, you know
But
what,
other
by the
than that,
time by the time they get to these questions, they're going to answer them. So leave them in there.
Okay.
All righty. I'm going to ask Dawn to sign off.
Okay. I left my mouse in the other room. So,
And Dr.
okay.
Hartzler, I'm going to take a break just a second while she's doing that, and I'll be right back.
absolutely.
How are you, Dr. Hartzler?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been a crazy start to the school year. I'm going to hang up in a second, but it's been a very, very crazy start to. How about you?
Yeah, it's been very busy. Mrs. Bobby resigned on Friday, and she's going to take a ministry up at Princeton University, a campus ministry where she teaches Bible studies and counsels women
Oh,
up there.
wow. Good for her.
So I thought I was going to have to cover the elementary ed, and then Miriam thought of calling Christy McInerney, and she accepted by Monday afternoon and is in place Tuesday and Wednesday to start school, and she's doing a great job. So
Good.
anyway, it's kind of an interesting quick reversal there, but she was a good teacher when she was here and got her master's up at BBC. I think she'll do a good job, but that I wasn't expecting that. You know, I thought, well, my last year is really going to be interesting here. I'm going to be doing both things. But
Yeah, good, good. I have for you guys a big huge banner that we had gotten, and they accidentally wrote Timothy Christian School instead of Academy,
really,
and they let us keep it. So I have it in my car. One of these days I'll drop it by and give it to you.
I'd love to have it. I would love to have that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that happens more
Yeah.
times. The more times than I care to count that they do that.
I understand. I understand.
So anyway, okay, I'm going to hang up.
Okay, you've done a good job.
Okay, thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Yep, thank you.
All right, Dawn, are you back?
Yes, I just
And you had a snack to get your energy back, right?
bought me a lemon donut.
Oh, there you go. She
Sit
took
down in 2 bites.
care of you.
Yeah.
Well, Don, the committee has 3 options. One is not to approve. It's actually 4. Not to approve it, to approve it but needing the whole committee to review the revisions, to approve it with revisions to be reviewed by the committee, and to approve it without any revisions. Now, what we have chosen to do, but what we did there, we've got very minor revisions that you and I are going to talk about, and primarily they're for the proposal. They're in your survey.
Okay.
And I'll talk to you about that in a little bit. But we've approved it. We are excited about your study. We're also very impressed with your work of becoming a scholar in the area that you're studying. You're very conversant. You know your stuff, and it's not something you've just done to do it. You've really committed yourself and shown your passion for it, and that comes through in your writing, in your discussion, and the whole thing. And we're real excited for you to be at this point in your studies and in your dissertation.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
thank you, Dr.
I concur, Don. Good job. Good job.
Right. And now I've got something else to do. What I'm going to do is I've been recording this, and I will edit that recording because I forgot to turn it off during our discussion, but I'll edit it. And I'll send that to you so you make sure that you know all we've talked about. I think you've made notes.
Okay,
and
I did.
Now, Monday, this hurricane, we don't have school. CIU is closed on Monday.
Okay.
So I'll set some time, I think Tuesday, it should be clear, if not Wednesday. But I'll email you, and we'll set up a time on Wednesday to go through this, and that'll give you time to work on it, see what you've done between then. And then Wednesday we'll get together and make sure we're on the same page. I see what you've done, and then we can go forward.
And I will, in the meantime, work on the
human subjects
stuff.
form. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is, do you have a pilot test set up to send this to? Okay, that's what I was thinking. We need to set up a couple of administrators that won't be in ACSI.
Okay.
And ask them to send it to their boards. Just so we can get once we've got the survey the way we think it should, just to see that if they have any questions or if there's something that doesn't quite make sense to them. Okay, that's good. And you probably know some people there in your area that could do that for you.
Dr. Hartzler, is the school down the street from, yes, are they ACSI?
Metuchen Christian?
Yeah.
I think they are, but I'll check. I'm not positive. Pilgrim Academy in South Jersey is not ACSI. Chris Storr is the head of school there. And
I think Life Center Academy isn't by me. They don't talk to anybody. They're like the most non-social people I ever met in my life.
Yeah, I hear you.
Now, there may be some CSI schools, too.
Yeah, I think Calvary's is CSI. I don't think, I think Calvary, Eric's old school.
Calvary Old Bridge is not, are they not ACSI?
No, they're CSI accredited.
And they would be a good test because they reflect ACSI type schools.
Yeah, okay, so I'll look. I'm sure that I can find a handful. How many do you suggest?
I would just say 2 or 3.
2 or 3.
And have them send it to their board members.
Okay.
And you set up, when you set up SurveyMonkey, you give that collector a different name so they're not put into your main one that you're going to collect.
Calvary Old Bridge, Don, I'm not even know if they have an active board or not. You have to find that out.
I'm going to try.
They don't have a head of school. They don't have a head of school anymore because they let Eric Morris go, and they just have 2 principals reporting to the.
But that would be a good one to see if the skip logic works.
True.
Yeah.
True. I'll find out. My niece works there as well as, Meg is there, and there's a couple other Timothy people, past Timothy people. So I'll check around because at least I have enough to connect with them. The Life Center Academy I can check as well too. I don't know what their members are though.
Okay.
Just don't quote me on what they do or don't have because I stay out of it. I'm not up on it, but it is what it is down there.
Yep, your name will not be mentioned.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, this is great, and now as we'll get through this proposal and get it approved by ACSI and get you on, and then I'm going to give you, we'll start working on rewriting the first 3 chapters so they're in dissertation language. That has to be in, right now it's in future language. It'll have to all be in past tense. And one of the things I'll tell you to start doing is make a note of how many paragraphs you start with the word in. And that will be one of your editing charges is to, that's just your style. And I'm used to it because I start a lot of my sentences with prepositional phrases.
Yeah.
So and it's the way we talk, it's the way we think. But when you read it, we're going to have to stylistically change and move away. But that's something while your surveys are out and you're gathering the data, you can start revising chapters 1 to 3.
Yeah, my friend who's a high school English teacher, used to be at Timothy, is now in New Brunswick Public School. She was going crazy the first time she was editing because, you know, English teachers, they are ready to bring all the flowers and butterflies into everything that you write. I'm like, no, this has to be boring writing.
This
clinical,
is precise and concise.
Yes, no, I was boring myself reading it again. I was just like, oh my goodness. So.
Yeah. But there are places where we have to work on style.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Hubie, will you close our time with prayer, please?
I sure would. Heavenly Father, thank you for Dawn and for the hard work she's put into this project, and I just thank you for the excellence of it, and pray that she proceeds and perfects it and does the revisions that you just guide and go before, make it a great learning experience, not only for her, but then for ACSI and for all of us as we get the results. Just pray that the schools would be willing to do the surveys with their board and head of school, and just to expedite this for her in every way. Thank you for Jim's leadership with her and in developing this project. We commit it to you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
And by the way,
yes.
Tim Heaton says hello to both of you.
Oh, no, where did you see Tim?
He came to our school on Thursday to do a biblical integration thing. And it's funny, Dr. Hartzler, you have lots of people in the world that call you Hubie.
I know. Dr. Lowry started that years ago at the Big Lake, and his daughters took it on, and then many others do it too. So I'm Hubie to that group of people.
Well,
it cracked me up.
Okay. You know he's known at the Big Lake if he's called Hubie because that's the way I was introduced to him.
Oh, it's so funny.
Back in 1985.
Hedges.
Yeah.
So, but he was a delight. He was so nice, and Dave Hedges came along too. So the two of them were gabbing it up about the both of you. So it was really funny.
Oh,
that's funny.
Tim is so gifted. Yeah. So great.
Listen, I don't care what they call me as long as you don't call me late to lunch. You know what I mean?
You got it. Yeah. You got it. Thanks so much, and you all have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.